Alice Weidel is now warning of a credit collapse that's rolling toward Germany. And it's shocking. Here's the entire audience with Markus Lanz. She's saying exactly what no one else dares to say right now. The current debt programs in Germany, with special funds and everything that's coming our way, could lead to Germany being driven to ruin. But it's not just Germany. The euro is also facing a potential collapse. She addresses the credit market and how interest rates are massively rising right now, and it's going to hit every one of us. In the form of inflation and rising interest rates, it's going to be a really, really critical situation for homeowners and farmers that's coming our way. Making a living is getting harder and harder to finance. At the same time, you're being cheated, screwed over, and lied to from start to finish. The CDU's policies under Friedrich Merz, and so on, this is an absolute disaster for the German population. And the craziest part is, she literally says here, the credit market is going to blow up in our faces. Guys, do you know what that means? That means the stability of a country is always determined by the 10-year government bonds. That means if the 10-year government bonds are doing well, then the country has a good rating, a good reputation. Internationally, that's, let's say, in demand and so on. And right now, with the debt packages that are all coming our way, special funds, infrastructure, funding for war, and then the debt break being triggered, the international market isn't just taking this lightly. Sleeping on it? No, the international market is watching this very, very closely. And we see how interest rates are rising massively, and that definitely downgrades Germany. 1, 2, 3 levels. And this downgrade could continue even further. And that's exactly what Alice Weidel is talking about now. And this is a mechanism that a lot of people don't understand, because many folks don't realize how relevant the credit market is. If you crash in the credit market, then shortly after, the whole country is going to crash too. That means the credit market is nothing more than a business card for the outside world, showing how solvent a country is, how credible it is, and how much debt it has. And Germany is still doing relatively well with its debt in relation to its gross domestic product. There are other countries that are in a much, much worse position. But with the current actions, Germany is definitely moving from the Champions League towards the 2nd or 3rd division. That means we're no longer a federal government. We're really heading towards the 2nd or 3rd division now. But hey, I don't want to tell you too much here. We're about to watch the clip where Alice, while clearly explains that inflation and all that stuff doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's all made by politics. That means the country is being driven into ruin politically. It's not like the country is just randomly being driven into ruin. Some bad conditions. And then it rained. The weather was to blame. Or any other things outside or something like that were to blame. No, it's all self-inflicted. Check it out. The audience is really shocked by Alice Weidel's statements and her honest words, and that she doesn't beat around the bush, but actually puts the facts on the table.
The debt break was even part of the election program, and that's why there's no need to beat around the bush here. They're watering it all down. They're throwing everything out the window. They're betraying their own voters. There will be huge disruptions in the credit market. There will be financial upheavals. It will have a huge impact. It will have an impact on the euro. It's going to devalue. We have imported inflation. And above all, what do you think the loans and mortgages of homeowners are based on? Exactly, maybe you don't know. I'm happy to explain it to you using the 10-year government bonds, whose yields have already jumped within just a few hours. And not by basis points. 2. No, it's 16. Basis points. No, basis points, 16. 16 basis points. So, what do you think this means for all the homeowners? The credit market is going to blow up in our faces, and that's a result of your shady policies. Just explain that simply.
So, that's crazy. There are so many important pieces of information packed into this little clip. So, she first talks about broken election promises. Well, that is quite clear here. The debt break is being circumvented. I believe that changes to the Constitution are now necessary. 3 of them are needed here. Then with all this special fund business, they're not being honest about it either. It's basically a betrayal of the voters. She is clearly talking about fraud. That is quite clear, because it's about taking on new debts. They then declare that as special funds. This is an absolute outrage that's happening here. Then we will see enormous upheavals. And that's what she means here, that here Germany. Then it gets downgraded on the financial market, which means fewer people are buying German government bonds. Now, what exactly happens then? Just like what has already been said, the government bonds then rose by 16 basis points in just a few hours. Then the politician with whom she debated here apparently did not understand that. So 16 basis points means that interest rates have gone up by 0.16%. And that means fewer people want to buy government bonds. Or now, people have probably sold government bonds. That's why interest rates are going up. But that also means if Germany wants to take on new debt here, then the interest costs will be higher. That means we're getting into a debt spiral here because the new borrowing is getting more expensive. That means this special fund is already expensive. The next special fund will be even more expensive. The special fund after that will be even more expensive. And that's when she talks about upheavals, when we could end up in a debt spiral. That's also what Ray Dalio calls the early phases of hyperinflation. If government bonds can no longer be financed through regular government bonds, but instead can only be financed through debt from external capital, having to borrow on the capital market through special funds, those kinds of things, but at the same time, the attractiveness. These government bonds, when you keep getting more and more in debt, which is pretty obvious, you mainly want to make deals with countries that are not heavily in debt. If Germany makes bad policies, doesn't present a credible image to the outside world, and hopelessly over-indebts itself, then no one will want to buy the government bonds. Then it becomes unattractive. Then you have the problem that if the government bonds aren't high enough, you basically have to finance yourself. About government bonds. But if interest rates go up, then government bonds will also get more expensive. That means you'll be stuck in a downward spiral even further, pushed down, because then the whole system becomes even more inefficient, the debts rise even more, and the new borrowing gets even more expensive as interest rates go up again. And so you're stuck in an endless spiral where interest rates keep rising and government bonds keep going up. That means you're paying more and more money to keep your Ponzi scheme going. So you're really building a Ponzi scheme here. And that's also what she's referring to here, with enormous upheaval coming our way. She also says fiscal disruption. And she also says the euro will depreciate. She also assumes that the euro will collapse sooner or later. And that's definitely another problem for other countries in the eurozone. Because when many countries get into debt, we also have the problem in Germany that, for example, other countries have gone overboard, like France, Greece, or countries like that. And Germany had to partially co-sign here. But now it actually looks like Germany is the one-eyed man among the blind. The other countries were way more in debt than Germany. Now it looks like Germany is also kind of in a position where is hitting the fan, and we're also getting into some really, really dangerous situations here. And this could also lead to the collapse of the euro. And then very, very important here is the credit market. That means anyone looking to buy a house now will have to pay more for loans in the future. That means financing for houses is going to get tougher. This means that potentially fewer houses will be built because it's just not attractive to build or own houses. That means the construction industry is going to crash here. Not just the construction industry, but other industries will also crash because so much of the inflated industry in our time is just being wrecked by high interest rates. I think it's a credit money and debt money system. And not good, but we are in the mess that we now have the problem that we are compelled to try to keep interest rates down. And if we can't manage that, then everything here, the entire economy, the whole credit market, the financial market, it's all going to crash. And that's exactly what's happening in the USA. In the USA, there's the Department of Government Efficiency, that they're trying to bring down the 10-year government bonds. And that's exactly what's happening. The 10-year government bonds are now even lower than the 3-month government bonds. So we have an inverted yield curve in the USA because we're saving massive costs by cutting positions, uncovering scandals, wanting to audit the Federal Reserve, wanting to audit Fort Knox, and so on. And that's being received very, very well globally. You can just see it on the global market, like, hey, the USA is right here to keep in mind, generating a balanced budget. They probably won't be able to pull it off, but at least that's the goal of the Department of Government Efficiency. And in Germany, they don't even think about balancing the budget. Instead, in Germany, they just throw money around for all sorts of things that don't make any sense. They're just throwing money around like it's nothing. The voters are being cheated. The whole system is one big lie and deception. And then it doesn't surprise me that more and more people are emigrating from here. I've asked this a few times before. Who of you is currently actively involved in thinking about emigrating? So I know a lot of people who really hoped for the federal elections, thinking, okay, maybe things will get better. And now I'm getting so many messages saying, hey, Mark, I really thought we were on the right track, but the federal elections turned everything around. I now realize that we are completely on the wrong track. And I also see that nothing is going to change in the next 3 or 5 years. And I just have to pull the emergency brake now. And the questions are like, hey, can you help me with emigrating or this or that or whatever? We might be doing a few more things about that soon, about emigrating and how to really make that happen. In the best way, I'd say, but I can't say much about that just yet. These are definitely the stories we're currently facing here. And now something really, really crazy has happened. And I really thought that was just insane. Joanna Koda is also a real freedom fighter, and she's doing something really, really big here. And it says here in the Bild newspaper that the plans of the Union and SPD are falling apart. The first member of parliament wants to sue against the debt deal. So it actually looks like Joanna Koda, who was first in the CDU, then the AFD, then independent, and has now left, wants to sue against the madness of the debt. And that's obviously it's a huge story that's going on here right now. That's pretty clear. Fraud. This is an absolute scandal that's going on here. And here we have Joanna Koda, who is suing against it. I find it relatively difficult to judge whether this has any chance of success or whether it has no chance of success, because that is always the problem. If, for example, you gamble away your money privately, or in your company, if you do something stupid, then you have to take responsibility for it, then you go bankrupt, then yes, you just end up on the street, then your house is liquidated or your furniture is liquidated. Then the pawnbroker comes along and who knows what else. And when politicians screw up, they still get a big payout. And who knows what else. There was also an interview by Joanna Coda with Jasmine Kozbek, where she talked about in politics there's cheating going on, or rather, it's not just cheating, but it's a massive scandal that you can be in the Bundestag for just a few years and then receive huge pensions, especially when it feels like you're only present for about 10% of the sessions in the Bundestag. It's just an unfair system. That means the Bundesliga. Members of parliament, we have such a massive special position here, and other people who have to work, who have to toil, who even have to be held accountable for their actions. And here's someone like Friedrich Merz, who can deceive and lie to voters. He clearly gets his pension and retirement benefits paid out, no matter if he cheats, lies, or whatever to the voters. He can do whatever he wants. He apparently doesn't even have the incentive or the decency to at least try to navigate through politics with some integrity. Instead, he even lies to people's faces. It seems like he's not even embarrassed or anything. And that's just outrageous, what's going on here. And then a lot of people say, okay, that's enough for me. Yes, that's the end of it for me. I either have to invest in Bitcoin or I have to emigrate, but something definitely has to change. Joanna Coda wrote here that I am suing the federal government against the debt madness. I consider the planned special sessions of the Bundestag to amend the basic law to be an unbelievable fraud against the voters regarding the planned debt in light of the high revenues from these government bonds is just outrageous. So that's the thing, government bonds bring in high revenues, but the country just can't sustain it. The citizens have voted out the traffic light coalition, yet the old Bundestag is supposed to push through exactly this policy. Because there are no majorities for gigantic debts in the new system, it's hard to explain to people. We representatives are supposed to make decisions about these billions in a mad rush. There will only be a few days between the first reading and the vote. This approach violates the rights of members of the German Bundestag, because we don't have enough time to properly discuss the proposals. Instead of a hasty procedure and new debts amounting to billions, Germany needs a serious financial audit, i.e. FWERA. Many government bonds are unnecessary and can be cancelled immediately. If you want to spend more in one place, you have to save somewhere else. Piling more debt and interest burdens on the citizens is just dishonest. Of course, more investments in the federal government and our infrastructure are needed, but the path that Merz wants to take is the wrong one. I can only emphasize that. And here, I really have nothing else to say but, hey, get informed about Bitcoin. Now is the best time to get started. The strategic Bitcoin reserve is ready to go. Germany seems to have somehow set the course for disaster right now, at least here, with Merz and the CDU, and so on. I mean, there are a lot of people who really want to push the country forward, who have great ideas and so on. But you can see that right now, it's not the majority that's making the decisions. That means we really have a new government now, and now it's time to decide. The voters have spoken. We can see that not even your vote really matters anymore. So now there's a new federal government, and yet the old government is still pushing through some debt packages. That means everyone who was a voter here, and it doesn't matter which party you voted for, everyone is basically being cheated here. And that's just a total disgrace, I gotta say. With Bitcoin, at least you can step out of the system so that politics can't redistribute purchasing power anymore. That's already the first step. Some are thinking about emigrating. If someone doesn't want to emigrate, that's totally fine. Okay, because I get that not everyone wants to leave Germany. It's a great country and all that. For sure, if you still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll drop a link for you down below. 21 Bitcoin, how you can easily, safely, and simply buy Bitcoin. Here you can find savings plans, auto wallet transfers, limit orders, a lot more, absolutely recommended, top secure app, very, very many good positive reviews. I get that every day. With the code Bitcoin Hotel, you can get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. I'll link everything down below, and I'll see you later. Let me know what you think about this massive disgrace. Until then, peace out.